What is good, YouTube? Welcome back into Offensively Accurate. This is episode number 32. We're getting our closer to number 50, man. It'd be nice to see 100 as well, man. 1,000 is way out in the distance. That's a huge long-term goal, but we're gonna keep going at it. Once again, no Donnie Brooke to join me as well. It's another solo cast, unfortunately, but we're gonna have a good show. We got a good bit of stuff to get into today. Some of the more important things being what went down during AFPAC. You can see a good bit of what's happening with the splitting that's happening on the right between the new right and essentially the old vanguard, which is, in my opinion, just a lot of people who are just stuck in the establishment garbage. The Christless conservatism, as I've previously coined it, and other people have coined it as well. And all in all, there's a bunch of white pills going on with everything that's happened so far. But let's just get started here. We'll start with some of the smaller news at the top of the hour before we get into some more of these bigger things. As you read the title, we're going to be doing something different today towards the latter end of this. We're going to be doing a spotlight on a creator. I think one of the things I would like to do is start bringing some kind of recurring segment with the show, as well as recurring guests and different stuff like that. But most particularly because I would like to, bring a good spotlight, as it says in the title, to people who I find to be very intelligent, people who deserve your follow, who deserve your attention, especially in matters such as culture and politics. And so I have an idea to do one on Jay Dyer here soon, but I think Homath deserves one because he's a bit smaller creator, he's a bit lesser known, but he's been making waves here lately. He's essentially huge now. I say up and coming rather loosely. He's essentially almost at 500,000 subscribers on YouTube, I think. So with that being said, the second announcement I do have, I guess maybe the first or the second really, but I will be streaming to Kick for secondary content. So it's going to be entirely separate from Offensively Accurate. Anything I stream on Kick, as of them thinking now, will be either exclusive to Kick or exclusive to Kick and X. I'm thinking about doing, well, for one, I think I might have mentioned the content house idea I had with a few of my friends, close friends, a couple of which are groomsmen. Were groomsmen at my wedding. Very close friends of mine. Doing content house, I would include anything and all stuff from, obviously the video game streaming, but things such as like doing an entertainment kind of critique, doing maybe something similar to like what you see with the Pop Culture Crisis that's hosted on Timcast show, where they just do general critiques of pop culture and entertainment. And it kind of skirts around the edges of the political aspect, the political sphere. And then thirdly, with that too, another idea that we had, which was to possibly start a Dungeons and Dragons channel. Now, super nerdy, I understand it, and this is entirely different than what anything political, but this is just secondary content to keep it going in the digital creation mode. But essentially the idea would be to gather around and have a running Dungeons and Dragons league. We'd obviously need more than a couple people. We'd probably need to at least pull around 6 to 7 or 8. And then make it so it's a weekly occurrence or a weekly meetup, something along those lines. And then essentially catalog the journey through Dungeons and Dragons through video, and then everything captured there. So it's I saw a kind of a trial run of this idea with Moist Critical, Penguin Zero is his other alias. I think they did a decent job at it. I think there are different areas where they could change and have improvements, and so we kind of play around with it. But just to let you guys know, I'm going to be not separating and divvying up time. I'll still be doing Offensively Accurate. This is the mainstay, but to start doing secondary content as well in other atmospheres, because as much as I love and can do politics nonstop all day, and I could, sit and read the news and explain and give you my opinion all the time, it really still misses the, it misses the cultural impact. Hey, what is up, Adrian? But it misses the unfortunate cultural impact of what you would get with somebody who was not a politico, but was making a lot of content in the realm of, leaning right, or at least putting the ideas that we would like to herald in this country out. I see it's done more effectively when people like, and now Asmongold's not Christian by any means, but he still has a bit more influence, I would say, over your average politico, generally because you're looking at the demographic and the way he influences. It's with ideas that are paired alongside morals and principles, not that you're putting forward the moral and principle and then finding a story to attach to it. So there's different, effectiveness depending on what route that you take. I'm going to probably try my best to do both, and we'll see how effective that is. But just to give you an idea, and you can see it on the ticker right there too, I added the kick as well. Nothing's there right now. I haven't even begun one stream at all, kind of thinking of what to do to start with that up. Because obviously I want to be it different than here with Offensively Accurate. But let's go ahead and get started. Again, subscribe to me on YouTube if you're not. Follow on X, follow on TikTok, anything else that you would rather be subscribed to. Share the show if you enjoy it. But we're going to start with some of these top of the hour stories. There was an absurd one that was with Joe Biden. Now this happened, and I only saw a bit loosely of it, but apparently the Democrats are already in full swing to run cover for this story. So go ahead and take a look at it here. So this is from Owen Schroyer, and he even says Democrats are sharing this video of Joe Biden, which is him essentially freezing, doing his old man dementia kind of spiel, which we've all become accustomed to, except for Democrats apparently. But Owen says this video of Joe Biden today is being disputed by Democrats, which I've seen on X and in Twitter, I guess you could call it. But he says, what level of delusion and derangement is this? So if we take a listen, and again, I point out to you, chat, anyone who's listening, if the sound is too low, too high, let me know. I will adjust it accordingly. I will do my best to monitor that. But they're saying this video is not real. They're saying it's a deep fake. We even have a thing from Karine Jean-Pierre. But what you'll notice with this video, before as I get ready to play it, is there's a distinct old man nature, but they're trying to say it's fake, and I'll let you guys look. So I think to anybody who watches this, it's very apparent that he's being led off the stage. I mean, you can't get more of a guiding arm besides literally holding his hand and leading him from the front, kind of walking him like a dog or a child. And, you know, Harry Sisson's already running cover. And if there were those who aren't familiar, Harry Sisson's one of the TikToker influencers who was paid, you know, whatever $100,000 amount from the Biden administration. There's a couple other ones, but Harry Sisson seems to be the most popular one out of the group. I can't even remember the names of the other guys. They're, you know, they're all these kind of Zoomer-esque, very skinny. This is how white people should act, kind of like ordeal. It's kind of cringe for the most part. But to sit here and say that this video is anything but an old man being led by another person who saw that they were frozen, I think it's just completely disingenuous, right? I feel bad for the guy. It's getting to a point where I can't even be mad at him anymore. You know, I kind of see a lot of this stuff and it just is like, you know, how many times we got to teach you this lesson, old man? It brings back those kind of SpongeBob vibes, but I can't, for the life of me, as much as I want to have frustration and anger towards the fact that there's all these corruption scandals, you know, he's paid off this and this, there's still a bit of me that's like, you know, that Biden, you know, was loose in the mortal coil probably 6 years ago, you know, and so at a certain point, it's like, you understand, like you're just beating down an old man. Do not take this as a defense for Biden. I'm just giving you my opinion when I'm watching him anymore. The heavy breathing, the very like, well, you know, it's just you feel bad, you know, and but he served his role, right? And his role essentially for the Biden administration or for the DNC and the Democrat, the deep state, was to serve as this paper-handed, single-term, take the blame presidency. And that's exactly what it's turned out to. Now, not everybody's turned his back yet. You still have a lot of his administration, like, you know, Karine Jean-Pierre, still running cover for him in the most, you know, dubious of ways, nefarious, just outright lying for the most part. And it's just, it's all around infuriating. But I think there will come a time very, very soon where you're going to see the rest of the Democrat Party follow suit, where they begin to call out Joe Biden's inefficiencies, because at a certain point, even a really, really bad lie, you know, can't pull the wool over the eyes when it's so obvious and in front of everybody, especially for someone who's a president who's always having to make appearances like this. Now, to go aside from this, right, and again, this was being disputed by Democrats and progressives that he did, in fact, not freeze. They're calling it a straight up lie, is essentially what they're saying. Now, even Colin Rugg is saying, you know, he has a clip here as well. And this one's got like 10 million views. It's got a lot of likes on there as well. It apparently happened at the Peacock Theater in LA. And again, they're raising money. $28 million for Joe Biden is just insane. But again, I would imagine a lot of this too is from celebrity donations or people who are close to celebrities who want to like appease celebrities. So I would imagine not all this money is outright, you know, peer-to-peer donations in small amounts because they want to support their president. I imagine it's a a few hundred donations separated made it up that whole entire 28 million. But to go to the next level with this, we have this from Harrison Smith, which this is actually a 30-second clip of during this actual this fundraiser event. Now, I think that, in fact, when he speaks, I find that to be more indicative of the mental decline than anything he really does when he's walking or standing. Because, a lot of old people kind of do awkward things, especially because their hips don't bend as well, but they could be completely fine upstairs. It's that they're kind of like awkward and clumsy getting around because obviously their motor function has clearly deteriorated. They're old now. It's just a natural thing in life. This is from Harrison Smith, InfoWars, one of I think possibly my favorite hosts on not on Harrison Smith, on InfoWars. But he says, "Holy shit, it's been bad the whole time, but holy shit." So again, this is a 30-second clip. This is a recent one, so you probably haven't seen this one, but this is again another in the light of a Joe Biden gaffe. Let me make the chat a little bit bigger so it's easier for everybody to see. Okay. Let me go ahead and play this in again. If the volume's off, please let me know. I will adjust it.
And guess what? It's growing. The economy's growing. People are doing better. We have the lowest unemployment rate in 50 years. We have more people. We've had over 15 million people brand new hired into the workforce. My son says we all have various short-term descriptions for your jobs, for what you accomplished. And you should say Joe Jobs. And guess what? It's growing.
Like what? Like, okay, so starting from the 15-second mark, because it's when he brings up his son is when he loses his train of thought and it's just gone from there.
My son says we all have various short-term descriptions for your jobs, for what you accomplished. And you should say Joe Jobs.
You should say Joe Jobs. That'll probably be the new moniker you see floating around from your favorite pundits, because what is that? Now, I don't think that one's nearly as bad as some of the other ones we've seen, like Bad at Calf Care or True Shopping Under Pressure. A lot of those I think could just be him kind of slurring his words. I think the worst one I've seen is the one where I think it's with the G8 meeting, and it's like he can't even breathe while he's trying to speak. And I think, in all honesty, if you want to even remove politics out of this and you just think about it from a more realistic perspective, even if you wanted to support this guy wholeheartedly, you would have to sit there with the realization of, like, there's a more than probably 10% chance, probably even higher than that this guy doesn't make it through 4 more years of presidency. So you're essentially you're almost guaranteeing a VP being installed during that presidency, or at least that's the idea. And I think as it sits now, I think there still can be changes done to the ticket, I think, especially because they've not even formally approached the ticket yet from the Democratic Party. But, in everybody's eyes and minds, until the current ticket is changed, that is going to end up being Kamala Harris, who somehow, miraculously, magically even, has a lower approval rating than Joe Biden, which is insane, because you're like, how could that possibly be when she's not nearly in the public sphere as much as he is? Now, she is in the public sphere a lot, but in terms of the president versus VP, those are 2 entirely different tiers of who's getting a camera put in their face. And then you got to think about it, like you're barely in the news and people are still finding a way to get to the polls to be like, I still like her a little bit worse though. Like, people have to be going out of their way essentially to be like, hey, we don't like this woman. Maybe it's because, like, they're asking polls about Joe Biden and Kamala's not even on the ballot of questions they're asking. And next thing you know, they're like out of nowhere, they're like, hey, I just wanted you to write down that I do not like Kamala Harris. Because how else do you get these numbers so consistent and then consistently underneath the president? And again, everybody understands. I think there's 2 big things at work, right? I think there's a big overarching, people just don't like political females. And I think that even more extends to the fact that people don't like boss girls as a whole. I think that's like a majority kind of opinion. They generally find them to be a bit more abrasive than, say, like an average female or an average woman who might be speaking, who's not positioning themselves as some kind of business person or a boss queen, as how Kamala would have coined herself or her following even. But I think the second one is just Kamala herself being known for essentially like sucking her way up the ladder, it's like, yeah, well, I don't think anyone's going to like that. And then you add on all of the queen bee kind of rhetoric on top of it. It's like, yeah, you're really insufferable to the average person, because then who can relate to that, and who wants to be supportive of something like that? That's so obvious. Keep in mind all the other stuff with the forced labor when she was running California and keeping people in prison for longer than they needed to be for cheap labor. There's a lot of things to not like Kamala Harris on. And she's sober, and she's alive and awake, so she's a bit more cognizant of all these things too. But to go to the next little top of the hour thing, I saw this. It's sad. I think it's probably the best way I can describe this. Now, it's a little bit less political, but it's more indicative of culture. And again, this is Harrison Smith as well. You can see I'm on a Harrison Smith kick right now. Let me go ahead and put it on screen. I should put it on. Oh my gosh. I just read all that out, and then apologies guys, I thought my microphone was attached. I'll just do this scene instead. In this first sentence, you have motherhood was never for me. I never ever wanted a child. I think anything that comes after this is, how could you blame the kid when the parent is in the first sentence abdicating her responsibility, or at least not abdicating it, but speaking to the fact that she wasn't very willful about the responsibility that she had earned by making decisions that put her in this position. But it continues, but I let my mother pressure me into having one because she wanted to be a grandma so bad. And she badgered me about it for years and years and years, to the point of tears and begging. Now that is very, very sad. That's incredibly sad. She goes, and eventually I let her warp my brain into being reluctantly convinced I wanted one too. I hated being a mother before my child was even born. I knew I was making the biggest mistake of my life, and I could not believe how stupid and weak-willed I was to cave to pressure. My partner wasn't even the one insisting on it. He was totally ambivalent. I could have told him I didn't want a child, and he would have still stayed with me and loved me. I don't know why I did this to myself in our relationship. He is more emotionally engaged with our son than I am, and I'm glad for that. At least, but he works long night shifts, so he isn't really super involved. This is a very, very depressing story. And to think even that the partner wasn't even really wanting one, I would imagine this is leading up to her building some kind of resentment for her mom, especially the way that she kind of words it, saying like her mom was essentially begging for her to the point of tears. Maybe she's going to kind of ply on the emotional manipulation of it. But again, this isn't uncommon. I think we got to make that point very clear. It's not uncommon in the slightest. I think this is a more closer to the norm of how the average female feels when it comes to childbearing. Now, whether it be for the right reasons or not, it's entirely not a mystery to me. It's not shocking to me. Every woman, from the age they are born is pressured, 6 ways from Sunday to be on, 110 different forms of birth control, all these different contraceptions. Men are trash. You don't want to end your life before it started. All this kind of rhetoric. So it's not, especially when there's such a minority voice that speaks to the opposite of that. I don't find it shocking that this is the normal position or the normal mindset of a female when she is thinking about having kids or leading up to that point too. And then you carry that over where, a lot of people say, well, things will change when you have a kid. You'll understand. But it clearly didn't for her. And in fact, I think it kind of accelerated her little bit of her depressive attitude by the fact of seeing that everyone's a bit more emotionally engaged with her child than she is, which again, I think is very sad. But she goes on, she says, he's now 6. I've put a screen in front of his face for most of his life. It's the only thing that would get him to settle. He is the embodiment of the stereotype of the iPad kid you see online. And stop it right there. I don't even think we need to read the rest of this, right? I mean, I'm going to, but my theory is right off the rip, she's clearly going to be an iPad kid, because if you're already saying that you didn't want anything to do with him, everyone else in your life was the reason why he's even here. It wasn't because if you wanted it. And even after having him, you're still like, I still didn't want to be a part of this. Well, then, yeah, I would imagine you're doing the most to not engage with your child, and you're instead letting an iPad do the things that you're supposed to be doing because you're bitterly just angry about the situation. I mean, at a certain point, you got to be an adult and kind of, buckle up there, bud, because it's like the kid's here, man. There's no going back. And then you're like, what? You're gonna try to give your kid to somebody else or give them up for adoption? It's just like, I mean, sure, that's a thing that you could possibly do, but I mean, the reason why it's not done is because she does feel some connection to him, as minor as that may be. But again, you guys gotta you have to be accountable and responsible for the decisions that you made. To sit there and say he's an iPad kid and then not take blame for it or take accountability for him being like that when you're his mother, I just find it a bit absurd. But it continues. He could expertly navigate a smartphone before the age of 3. He needs his iPad at basically every waking moment of the day. And if you take it away from him, he just screams and screams, sometimes until he starts vomiting. That is very sad. But again, he's 6 years old, right? Essentially, he became conscious a year ago, right? So most of everything that's been going on is because the mom has been setting him up for failure. I don't think you can blame the child here. He's 6 years old. So, and again, you got to think about yourself too. Like for me, it's like, I literally can't remember anything before the age of 5. And even that, it's like foggy memories. It's like, wow, one time I had a birthday party. That's all I remember for the year, to sit here and act as if there's any kind of onus. And at the very top, you'll notice there, it says venting, no advice. And it's because she knows what the right thing is. She doesn't want to be told it. She wants to come to some platform where she could be anonymous and just be bitter about the decisions that she made because she's just selfish. She's just a selfish person. And ultimately, very, very depressing for the child. But he continues by saying he will do this anywhere, public or private, it doesn't matter. His will is so unbelievably stubborn, he doesn't give up ever. And I eventually cave every time because I don't have the energy or commitment to deal with him. It's a mother saying she has no ability to commit to her own child. I find that insane. We have a comment here saying, it makes me so sad that kids nowadays won't be able to experience true childhood like we were able to even in the early 2000s. I agree. Completely agree. And there's no going back. As long as technology continues to innovate, it continues to keep advancing. And especially pair that with the fact that the cultural element of the parents is they just don't want to take care of people, their children. And when you say people, it doesn't bode well for a good future. It doesn't bode well for a productive future. It doesn't bode well for the child first and foremost. But again, this is not, what would I say, out of the ordinary. Again, this is normal. This is to be expected. But to continue with this, where I lost my position, he has a low attention span, is always in a foul mood, and one of his classmates showed him pornography last year, so now I have had to install safeguarding apps. He's 6 years old. How is one of his classmates showing him pornography? That is insane. What do you mean? At that point, it's like you need to get somebody involved, dude. No 6-year-old was going to go out of their way. Like somebody definitely showed it to that child. I mean, that kid's got some kind of direction with that. That's insane. I think that's the most alarming thing I've read about this whole thing. But she goes on to say that he sometimes randomly starts moaning sexually specifically to upset us because he knows it's not appropriate. He always has the iPad within reach. He needs to have it on and playing YouTube even in restaurants. Enjoying a day out at the park to touch grass or even sitting through a 2-hour film in a movie theater is out of the question because he would get bored and scream for the iPad again. That is crazy, dude. I mean, I think they're raising an intelligent kid for him to understand the incentives and disincentives to do something to push and pull his parents. But that's the point, right? Why are the parents being led by the child? The child shouldn't be inducing parameters with his behavior that leads the parents to do things. The parents need to take a rein on it. But again, why would they? Because this mother is already saying, I don't even want this kid. Like, you have no reason to complain. He's an iPad kid because you made him an iPad kid. You got to have some accountability here. Enjoying a day out at the park to touch grass or even sitting through a 2-hour film in a movie theater is out of the question because he would get bored and scream for the iPad again. To think that he couldn't even survive in a movie theater when he's still watching something is kind of insane, right? I think that's also speaking to the fact that it's not just being distracted, it's the dopamine effects of such as things like jump cuts and all of the forgetting the technical jargon of this, but the way the camera moves and it jumps and it pops and it bangs, that kind of like super flashy content that is essentially dominating YouTube. And then you got to compare that with the fact that now it's not even YouTube videos doing that, it's short form content, things that are less than 60 seconds, sometimes less than 30 seconds. And if that's what this kid's being addicted to, I know. I really don't blame him for his attention span being fried. It's because the parents keep putting these things in front of him. What's he supposed to do, right? Have the conscious ability to be like, wow, this is bad for me as a 5 or 6-year-old? Like, no, that's insane. But she continues, he doesn't play with toys, they don't interest him. Sometimes I think the iPad has prevented him from forming an imagination of his own. He doesn't draw, play pretend, etc. Just iPad and YouTube. It is the only thing he enjoys and wants to interact with. Don't even get me started on the issues he has in school. Well, ma'am, I think it's because he's entirely developed a dopamine incentive system that only comes from the iPad. I think that if you were to have, been in his life a bit more than essentially handing him a digital device, he probably would have developed some kind of dopamine incentive effect with being around his own parents. But seeing how that's not there and seeing how the way that she even, the whole premise of this is how she didn't want him and she was pressured into doing this. Again, you cannot blame the kid for that. I mean, ultimately, it's terrifying to think that it's like the kids are hypersexualized to the point that these are talking points for 5 and 6-year-olds, the pornography stuff. That's insane. I think if anything, that goes back to even further cement my argument, which is we got to ban porn entirely. You got to get rid of it completely. It's so bad. It's so subversive and it's done in ways that are meant to, I mean, dude, you got to just think about it, especially with the way the digital gratification from watching a woman that you fancy being done in by a man that's not you is just like, I mean, for the man side of it, there's a whole batch of just emasculation, humiliation, cuck kind of flow of emotion, which for a lot of guys, they just get addicted to the rush of what that is without understanding like why they're being addicted to it. And it's just all bad. It's just all around all bad. And you got to just like, I feel terrible for this child. But again, if you're going back to what I think, which is the more of the norm, I think we're going to need to be well aware and expectant of a good portion of a lot of these, Gen Alpha kids being raised to be entirely dysfunctional and broken, even at the mental level of understanding what is and isn't okay, even basic things such as social order. I even see that a bit too, where it's like, they're probably going to iPad kid these children so hard, they're going to be walking in the street not understanding like what jaywalking is and different things like that, because just their social acuity of like, this is okay to do in public versus this isn't okay to do in public is going to be so broken because their heads are buried into a screen. And especially the way she's detailing it now, that the only thing he gets enjoyment from is that, and he has no incentive outside of that. Well, then, yeah, like it makes sense. He would never, there's no reason for him to even care about the outside arena. And again, we're talking about a 6-year-old. So his mind is very, very limited and small, so we can't really see big picture things like that. But she ends it by saying, and I feel horrified by all of this because I know this is not normal for a child, but I'm so exhausted. And it's like, how are you tired when you're not even raising your child is beyond me. I know I'm the one that did this to him. Okay, that's fair. She's being accountable. I will take that. That he's just a child, and I'm the one who decided that I couldn't get through parenting him every hour of the day. I just pray he turns out even somewhat normal. That maybe as his brain develops further, his behavior will level out. I don't have a lot of hope because I don't have the willpower to take the iPad away. Motherhood is too hard without it. I feel like the most selfish mother in the world. I will give her points for being aware to the point that she understands that she is the reason doing it, and that is because of our own selfish nature that has led him to develop this way. But imagine being the kind of person who can be that aware of what's going on, but still be too weak to take that iPad away and make a change. I mean, that's unbelievable to me. I think that speaks more to the quote that Harrison Smith put on here, which is just, this was one of the worst things I've ever read. No, clearly it's not nearly as graphic as some of the worst things I've probably read, but in terms of the feeling of despair and misery that probably goes on in these people's lives, the trio, that child, the man, the woman, that's dark stuff. And I think, again, the most alarming thing about this is the fact that another 6-year-old was showing another 6-year-old pornography. Insane. I mean, the best thing I could say to this is like, dude, you got to set a limit on when you're going to give your kid, introduce like an iPad or these digital devices to your child. I think 5 and 6 is way too young. I think they got to be at least, 7 or 8. They have to have escaped that realm and be somewhat conscious before you begin to put in front of them an extremely gamified system. I mean, everything is, whether it's, it's X or whether it's YouTube or whether it's an actual game on an iPad. They spend millions of dollars to engineers to specifically make these things as addicting as possible to the point that adults struggle with it. So to think that you're going to hand that to a child is just like, I think that's retarded, especially one that's that young and is not as developed, who can make the cognitive decisions that, okay, I've been on this too long, or like my eyes hurt, simple things like that. And again, it's terrible. It's all in all very, very terrible. And at least she feels like the most selfish mother in the world. There's a chance that she changes and she does better. There's a chance that, especially when she's saying she's praying, so maybe she has some kind of Christian ethic framework in her background. You can just only hope, as much as hope can be, that the child makes a change, or not the child, or the mother makes a change and the child's life can improve. But again, a lot of those habits are hard to break out of, especially when you're enforcing them in a kid that young. So I went along on this. Let's go back to the actual news before we get to the creator spotlight. Again, AFPAC Absurdity. All right, start right here. Scenes from AFPAC. So it happened, but it didn't kind of really happen. Now, the unfortunate part with this, let me go to zoom in too, because it's almost impossible to see if it's like that. So it happened, but not really happened. And so what do I mean when I say that? This is the Telegram picture that was released shortly, I think it was like a couple of hours before AFPAC was supposed to start, where AFPAC 4 was canceled. So I'll go ahead and read this. I think there's a couple of them. I hope so. Or maybe it's just this one. I'll read this one. It says the AFPAC 4 is canceled. So this is from Nick Fuentes' Telegram account. He was saying, yesterday as our team finished setting up our stage and began preparing to rehearse the program for tonight, the venue, which was the Russell Industrial Center, informed them that they would not permit them to go forward with the event in breach of their contract with them, saying that they attempted to negotiate with the property manager, but they had already called the police, who forced the 100-person team to leave the premises and threatened to criminally trespass us. They locked the doors with much of our equipment inside, and they will be pursuing legal action against the venue for the breach of contract. Now, it's also saying over the last 24 hours, they've been working nonstop to put together an alternative venue, but on such short notice, they didn't know if they could find one, and it looks like they essentially did everything in public and outside. Now, I do have a few different clips from this, because the venue pulling out last minute is just entirely shitty. Especially when you got to think too, what preceded this was them being barred from coming into TPUSA. I don't know if anyone had seen that as well, but there's footage of the security guard walking in. I think it was Fuentes, Jake Shields, and a couple people from his crew. They essentially walk in, the security guard walks them right back out, dude. They were in there for like 8 minutes, but they all paid for tickets, right? They all paid for tickets, were given no reason to leave, but everybody knows the reason that they had to leave or the reason why they were pushed out. It's because you can't be America first in this country. It's rather unfortunate. Nothing at the cost of Israel, clearly. It's becoming more and more apparent to me the longer I am online. Now, they will be pursuing legal action. And I believe this is his statement on it. It's about a 2-minute clip. And again, anyone who's listening, if the sound is too low, too high, please let me know. I will change it accordingly.
Deal. And I do apologize that we had to do it this way. I mean, I think we're making the best of it. This is an incredible venue. But we spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to do it at this Russell Industrial Center. We had it all. Love the chances. But that's good.
Yeah, it's funny how people feel threatened by a 24-year-old. Yeah, is he 24? I think he's only 24, 25, 26. They're terrified of him. This Mexican white supremacist, they're terrified of. And I think, as this is going on, I think he's really kind of positioning himself to be in the running, I would say. Positioning himself to be in a hot seat to rise in political power. I think a lot of what I've seen here lately, given all of the big support he's been getting, it's been like a snowball rolling down the hill, getting unbanned from X at least, even though he's not able to be verified and make money and be monetized on there. I think the writing is on the wall. I think the new right is surging well past the old vanguard. Time will tell. Everyone's been talking about, who does Trump have in the bench? Who do the Republicans have in the bench? Now, obviously, there's two big names that come to mind, right? There's Vivek Ramaswamy, but there's also Ron DeSantis. Now, Ron DeSantis is definitely more popular among the old vanguard. Now, Vivek is probably the 50-50 guy, and I would imagine he would end up falling into the new right as well, seeing how he comes from a very libertarian-minded background, and now he isn't, Christian ethic framework built. I believe he specifically is Hindu. And again, I could be wrong on that, but I don't think that he's Christian. And with that, though, I think just in the intuitive nature of libertarianism, which is to question things and be against foreign aid, and seeing how his 10 big items were, we believe in God, but he also wanted to abolish the ETF. He also wanted to abolish large swaths of the bureaucracy. I would find it very reasonable for him to fall into the new right, whether it would be by proxy or whether it would be because he wanted to simply adopt them and join that movement. I think it's indicative you have those two. I think outside of that, though, if you're looking even a bit younger, who I think you got to be 35 to run for presidency, so we still have some time before Fuentes can even make a legitimate run for anything. I think you're looking at those terms after the 8, which I think would line up almost perfectly with Fuentes aging to the point of being able to run for president. Now, whether it's him going right into presidency at first, maybe not. It could be some other position, whether it's a senator or something like that. But I think he's the kind of guy who goes big or goes home, and I think he would go straight for the presidency. But again, to finish this out, though.
Does Charlie Kirk get any chance? What would they even chant? Like small face? Small face. Small face, small face, small face, small face, small face. No, but so.
And I mean, if you're watching this too, you can just see the way he kind of controls the crowd. It's got that, I wouldn't say Trump energy, because it's not as electric as, a Trump being in an arena and getting, close to like tens of thousands of people kind of cheering you on at once, kind of like how you see in those UFC TikTok videos. But you can still see that the energy is there. And I think if he was to become a bit more acclimated and weathered out to the people who normally have never heard of him, because, Con Inc. does the most to make sure that you can't hear about him, I think there's a good chance that he would really honestly become a very electric candidate for politics in the future. Now, I understand too, I was going to play the rest of this, but again, it's just him saying he's going to sue them. I wish the audio was a little bit better. It's very difficult for me to hear, but that's essentially what it is. They're going to sue them. And so we'll see what happens with that. I hope that they end up winning that. But again, it's not going to be the only person that gets sued out of this. Well, possibly, because the bigger thing that kind of came out of this, which was, I think, again, a bit astroturf to take a bit of the wind out of the sails of what the AFPAC movement was what happened with SNEAKO, before I do go to this bit with SNEAKO, you can clearly see that there is pictures, there's energy here, there is a following, there's a group. This top right one right here is the one of him being escorted out of TPUSA moments after he walked in. He didn't say anything, wasn't violent, and they just can't have it. Now, I think this is the police on the top left. This is him trying to talk to the Russell Convention Center to figure out what's going on. But this top left one you can see was where a lot of the speech was made. I believe they did it right outside of the TPUSA convention, if you can see down here. Now, Taylor Hanson, who's a reporter from Tenet Media, who I believe, now I'm not sure if Tenet Media is owned by Timcast or if Timcast is just a partner in Tenet Media, but Taylor Hanson is one of the top guys who works for Tenet Media, and he was there the entire time. Now, the reason why this is important is because there's a secondary story that's going to follow this that involves SNEAKO. But Taylor Hanson was doing his normal thing, which was being a chemographer, kind of journalist. He wasn't, asking as many questions as he normally possibly would be, but he was taking a lot of photos and video because he was just reporting live on the ground. So that's important to remember the Taylor Hanson aspect. And so even though this all happened, he got canceled, he still had a really good showing. And I won't play these actually on the air, but you can just see them for those who are watching. If you're listening, it's essentially just Nick Fuentes on a balcony screaming out to a crowd of people. Probably not nearly as big as anything that there was with TPUSA, but again, you got to think if they got the venue canceled, people probably had to, they lost plans, people who probably had to drive, from hours away. You're not going to get the same crowd that you were going to get if they were able to keep the original plans and venue. I imagine a lot of people just thought it was canceled outright and just turned around. So who is there to say what this crowd really would have looked like? But I think that there was a lot of good moments with this. The one moment I did want to play was to show that his commitment, I think is the correct word, to Donald Trump, which I think speaks volumes, especially for somebody who they call the most far right, right? Well, if Donald Trump is Hitler, then what does this make Nick Fuentes, right? You can't really go for beyond that, right? I mean, there are a few, but not that many, and not that many who are known by name, at least in the mainstream like that. But this is from SNEAKO. And I bring this up too because this is becoming a thread, a specific thread, when it does come to the splitting of the conservative party, or I guess the Republican Party, namely more, which is the Christless conservatives versus those who are forward-facing Christians, fire and brimstone. Now, a lot of this does come from the fact that Nick Fuentes does not appreciate the open support Donald Trump has been giving Israel. I think it's more specifically his issue with that. But I think a lot of people also that are inside this picture also see the fact that when Donald Trump is asked, how's your relationship with God? Like how do you, what's your relationship like when you pray to Christ and stuff? And he can't give an answer that any little Christian who walks the streets on this earth would be able to give you. He goes, Donald Trump goes right into this, the evangelicals support me a lot, as if that's an answer to the question about your personal relationship with God. And so I think people are beginning to see through the glass a bit, especially given the fact that, his meme team puts him on crosses and they kind of messiah him, and it's very messianic. Essentially, they're like, he's the one choice, it's the one thing. But then when asked a simple question, it's just like, give us your little story about how it is with God, he can't even say anything because it's just like, it's so foreign to him. He doesn't really truly have one. Now, I would imagine he does, but it's probably closer to the deist framework, which is like, it's like, all right, God, I know you're up there, but that's it. There's probably no praying. That's probably the extent of the relationship. And again, this is all speculation given from the fact of the videos that have released and seeing how he has carried himself. But on screen, this is from SNEAKO. This is Fuentes quoted saying, "I cannot pledge to support Donald Trump until he becomes America first again." Now, this is about a 3-minute clip. Hopefully it's got better audio. We will listen to this one. So give me your thoughts.
It's a little bit disappointing because when I went out to support Donald Trump in 2015, I went out there because he said he would not take money from donors, special interests, and certainly not from AFPAC. But it seems like now Donald Trump is content to take $100 million from Miriam Adelson.
If you're unfamiliar, Miriam Adelson donated $100 million shortly after the convictions were handed down in the felony case with the with the hush money payments, I think with the Michael Cohen and the what was the conviction? It was like falsifying business records. Man, I couldn't remember what it was called. But Miriam Adelson, who is a very vocal Israel supporter, donated $100 million because of these convictions for Trump and her support. That's exactly what he's talking about here.
We have a Muslim American over here. Isn't that great? Let's go! Donald Trump is taking $100 million from Miriam Adelson. And I'd like to remind everybody, Miriam Adelson is a single-issue voter. She only cares about one country, but it's not the United States. She only cares about the Jewish state of Israel.
So you can clearly hear the sentiment there, right? Like the sentiment is becoming a lot more loud and in the open and mainstream than it ever had been before. And again, for someone who's kind of arriving late to the party, it's just like, it's been a roller coaster ever since October 7th, for me specifically. The other thing I want to point out here too is this guy's cracking me up, dude. He just seems so uncomfortable just standing there. He looks like he's carrying a bunch of like camera equipment. It's just like the way his face looks is very, very funny. But again, let's continue.
Under Donald Trump's first term, thanks to the support of Miriam and Sheldon Adelson, Donald Trump freed the traitor Israeli spy Jonathan Pollard and sent him back to Israel on a private jet. If Donald Trump had stayed true to his original campaign promise, he would have freed Julian Assange, not Pollard.
Free Assange! Free Assange!
Free Assange! Free Assange! Free Assange! Free Assange!
That's something I can get behind, dude. I think one of the first things that needs to happen come the new presidency, Julian Assange has got to be pardoned, dude. Has to be pardoned, dude. Has to be.
Free Assange! Free Assange! Free Assange! And you know something? I will never vote for Joe Biden. Never. But I cannot pledge to support Donald Trump until he becomes America first again.
Make Trump America first again. So what was once a slogan has now become a meme. And it's like, insert whatever political ideology here. Make this something again. It's awesome. But again, it speaks to the meme magic that happened in 2016 that just kind of exploded and sent all of this stuff through the roof. But I will point out too, you can tell this video right here from Tenet Media. Again, Taylor Hanson was the one recording a lot of this stuff. And again, remember that as we get to the fact when we go to the SNEAKO aspect of this, which is going to be, I imagine people are seeing more about the SNEAKO bit before they've seen any of what actually happened at the AFPAC, or I guess the AFPAC 0.5 that they tried to have, even though no venue was going to allow them in. This is a statement from on Palestine. Again, but you can see here, and the only reason I wanted to pull this up is not to listen to this one, but if you can see, the reason why, again, Taylor Hanson's here. And I'm pointing this out because I believe the current story on SNEAKO is entirely wrong and fabricated and needs to be retracted. And I'm going to keep pointing this out because I think Taylor Hanson's going to be a key witness to the story that's going to be happening when I get to it. Here in like 2 clicks. This one, I only wanted to put here to speak towards the fact of what I just said a little bit ago, which is I believe he's positioning himself to be in a solid position to claim power for what is to follow the Trump presidency, especially if the new right keeps its momentum and we keep the infighting going and we continually wage this cultural war amongst the insides of the parties. Now, I don't care what happens in the DNC. These progressive crazies can do whatever. I don't care. I mean, but the more they come over here, the better, and they come to Christ. That's fantastic. I'm not saying we don't want them. I'm just saying, like, as long as they're staying over there and figuring out how many babies they can kill and how much abortion needs to be legal, it's like, all right, whatever. I don't care about that. But people along the voices of like Christnosis, Sovereign Bra, Nick Fuentes, Jake Shields, there's a lot of them now. I mean, Stephen Wolfe, who wrote The Case for Christian Nationalism, there's so many voices in this now, especially when you have Elijah Schaefer as well, E as he goes by, who left, pretty poorly, I think, with the Blaze Media. But I think as long as the momentum continues, you're looking at a very, very strong potential candidate for the future for someone to take power in the United States of America.
Donald Trump, 9 years ago, said, "I am your voice." I don't know about you guys, but when he goes up there and says we're going to throw out all the anti-Israel protesters, that's not my voice. The good news is you come to AFPAC and you hear a speech like this and you know, I am your voice. So, in the spirit of me being your voice, I want you to raise your right hand. Raise your right hand.
He's so dumb, dude.
Repeat after me. I solemnly swear that I will put America first. And I will put Israel last. Every single time. Because Christ is our King. Amen. All right, let's go. Yeah.
Look at this, though.
Oh, now we're out of here.
See what? Like, he's got these unique, like, little gestures. Like, he's putting himself in the position to be like this charismatic enigma, this unique, like the band man. Like, he's got everything going for him right now, especially as the more lax platforms begin to loosen everything up. Especially you pair that with the fact that the noticing is going rampant. I mean, even without the influence of people like Nick Fuentes, that's why I point to the others who are the bigger players in the Matrix, like the Jake Shields, who are the UFC guys. Now, there's other ones. I think I think Max Holland might also be someone else too. I could be entirely wrong on that. But the masculine spheres, the UFC, the ones who are when Trump shows up, they're like, woo, like going crazy, right? I think that they have started, or the train has left the station and there's no stopping it. It's only a question of where's it going? And will it stop? I think that's what we're looking at right now. And I think, again, if it were my prediction, I would imagine this guy is in office, whether it's president or not, or governor of somewhere, in the next 10 to 15 years, he will be somewhere. If not the owner of the largest media company that exists, or maybe not the owner of the largest, but in that mix of competing with somebody like the Daily Wire instead of vying for, pennies on Rumble and being suppressed everywhere else. So what happened with SNEAKO, right? What is going on with SNEAKO, and why did I say his name? Why did I bring up Taylor Hanson 20 times? Well, that's because you have this story, and I'll just show these two images. Security guard punched SNEAKO in the face. SNEAKO has less teeth now. Yeah, you said Fuentes 2034. Yeah, I think that's when he'd be able to run. If not, it's like 2038 or something. I could be wrong on that. But again, expect that to be a reality coming forward. But SNEAKO right here. So this is an image of the security guard, Superman, mid-Superman punch, and that's clearly SNEAKO with less teeth. But the story is that SNEAKO started this, and the security guard was in the right. So I'll take you to the initial report. Ollie London did a great job of doing the media preamble of, before I say anything about these people, they are anti-Semitical, nationalist, white, racist, homophobic, bigot, like insert any term you possibly can think of there. That's what you're going to get. So again, it's from Ollie London, right? And again, if you don't know who Ollie London is, it's that person who did all that trans work and they wanted to be a pretend North Korean person, or just Korean in general, I think. So they had all this plastic surgery, then they wanted to be a girl, and it just, someone who's very, very, very confused, and I don't understand how they have a huge following. Truly. I mean, an enigma to me, but I see them on X all the time. But this is what they say. She says streamer SNEAKO has his teeth smashed up by a security guard after a group of anti-Semitic influencers attending the now canceled AFPAC convention refused to leave a Detroit bar. SNEAKO yelled "F you" at the security guard as the group refused to leave the bar despite being told repeatedly they were not welcome. The streamer then jumped on stage to knock the guard's hat off before the security guard responded by jumping into the crowd and punching SNEAKO in the teeth. I know that much is apparent. The group, including Jake Shields, were gathered in Detroit for the neo-Nazi AFPAC convention organized by virulent anti-Semite Nick Fuentes. See what I meant there with the preamble? Like, she couldn't have just said Nick Fuentes. She had to make sure it was the neo-Nazi AFPAC convention, virulent anti-Semite. I'm surprised she didn't just say white nationalist, the radical, add in all the terms, dude. You know, hit that multiplier, dude, and get those clicks. The event was canceled 24 hours prior to starting after police were called to remove the organizers by request of the venue. So this is the picture, but we'll go ahead and watch this video here. Why is it so small? Okay. So right there, he's saying these people are white supremacists. And again, I'll get to the update of this. I just want to watch this in full before we start peeling it all back.
Okay, what are you? What are you? What are you? What are you? Fuck you! 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 Fuck you!
And there it is. Now you'll see here, this is Jake Shields right here. He looks like a lost puppy, unfortunately. But people have been pointing out, like, why didn't Jake Shields just jump in? You're a fighter, man. Why didn't you just start fighting a random security guard? And it's like, come on, dude. Like, don't play stupid with me. Dude probably had no idea what was going on, and he might have also been under the influence of something too. It's hard to tell. But again, to think that just because you're a fighter means you got to just jump into any fight that's happening near you is insane. And again, some people think like this because they just don't understand what it is like being a man, or the cost and risk benefit of not being in a fight. Just very simple things. And again, probably just an employee to be like, you're not a man, you didn't fight, you're a fighter. Wow, coward, you didn't instantly just start a brawl. It's like, come on, bro. So again, as you would look at that, you'd be like, okay, wow, it looks like SNEAKO just went and popped this dude's hat and then he got punched. Like, okay, doesn't SNEAKO deserve that? I was kind of thinking the same thing, right? I was like, what kind of lost his defense, you know? Especially because you think about that Bradley Martin video that happened with whatever that other streamer's name is, where the streamer just walks up while Bradley's on his phone and the streamer pops his hat and Bradley just is like, come here, slaps him across the mouth. Well, I mean, Fafa, dude, like, fuck around and find out, man. Like, it's very simple, dude. You came for a huge dude's hat, tried to knock it off, and you think he's going to just allow that disrespect, especially on camera in his own gym? Like, dude, you're lucky the cameras were on. So, again, when I'm watching this, I was like, okay, SNEAKO kind of deserved that, right? But then I saw all of these people who were actually there at the event saying this is a lie. And I'm like, okay, why is it a lie? This doesn't make any sense. So again, I'll bring up the point. Taylor Hanson, who is not affiliated with AFPAC, but he is a member of Tenet Media, also commented that this isn't what happened. And remember, he was there all day within feet from Fuentes recording all of this stuff. Now, this didn't have a Tenet Media tag, and I'm not sure because this might have been from SNEAKO's stream where this was clipped from. But if Taylor Hanson was there in person saying that it didn't happen for someone who I even disagree with, I'm going to take Taylor Hanson at his word because I wouldn't think that he would defend SNEAKO out of ideology, I think, when they don't even align. Now, I think Taylor Hanson aligns somewhat, but I don't think he's a full-in member of, like, the Groyper community the same way that a SNEAKO is, or Jake Shields would be. So this is the update. This is from Lauren Witzk. I don't even know how you say that. She quoted the All in London take. Now, again, I don't know who Lauren Witzk is. I do know that she is a big supporter of Nick Fuentes and is followed by all the mutuals there as well. Even got Owen Schroyers in there too. Vincent James as well. Christian nationalist, right? So apparently she's a film producer for Died Suddenly, which is another huge account that is on X. So that makes sense why she is as popular as she is. What did she say? She says, you need to retract this. This is not what happened at all. We booked and paid for the venue outright. The venue is made well aware of who we are despite the way they made things appear. The security team with zero impulse control got triggered by one of the speeches, turned on loud music, and just started assaulting our production staff and attendees who were behind the audio booth and in the crowd. You want to make us look bad, so I get why you would lie. but the chaos was caused on their end, not ours. So I want to go back to this too, because I think one of the top things here, we have Morgan Ariel, right? And I can't stand her. But right here, this is not what happened from Taylor Hanson. I mean, that alone, I saw that on an Ollie London post, and I was like, okay, bro. Like, I definitely must have been something else that occurred. And especially because you got like 40 cameras on in there must be something else that comes with this, right? Like I feel like a little insane. That's the wrong one. But she continues down here saying Edward Seall was just running the soundboard and minding his own business. Now, I didn't understand this video when I saw it because it looks like it's a continuation, and the security guard is here again. It looks like the same guy, right? Got that Nike hat on, not that big, black guy. I was like, okay, what is this? Well, then I find out Vincent James quoted this one and said that after punching SNEAKO, let me pause this actually. He says, after punching SNEAKO, the black security guard proceeded to the sound booth, picked up a random guy running the soundboard, and threw him out the window. Like, I mean, like you can't claim self-defense on SNEAKO and then turn around and then go throw a guy out the window who wasn't even doing anything. Right? But it's just, what? It says only 11 seconds, but we'll just go ahead and watch it, man. Hopefully it's not too loud. Oh my gosh, this blew my own eardrums out. Okay, I'll turn that down and save you guys trouble. Okay, so that's right there. He just tosses the guy. And I'm just like, that's the security guard, right? Now, again, it's a terrible situation, right? This venue is just like, it's just chaotic, right? And then again, I don't enjoy the fact that it's supposed to be like this America First convention that's like got Christ is King, but it looks like a bar at 2 a.m. Like I don't think you're really doing yourself any favors by trying to run your events like as if it was the, Friday night on a college campus. Like that was one of the first things I noticed where I was like, dude, can we please stop with this low IQ kind of like dancing and stuff? I get you trying to have a good time and all that. But does it have to be done in the style of like a bar, like a college bar? I don't know. Maybe people are enjoying it. Maybe I'm too old for this stuff. But that was one of the first things I thought too. Even if you take this into consideration and you go, okay, well, say we take all this, right? Well, didn't SNEAKO still go and tip the guy's hat? Yes, SNEAKO did tip the guy's hat. But the post got deleted and I could not find a secondary one of it. There was another one, let me pause this too, because I don't want any random stuff showing up on stream. There was another video that showed that the security guard, before he had his hat knocked off. Now, you're going to have to take my word for it because I cannot find the video anywhere. And definitely call me out if I'm entirely wrong and the video is fake. The video that I saw showed the security guard doing exactly what SNEAKO did to him, which was tapping his brim to get the hat to pop up. He was doing that to people in the crowd before that was happening, before what we saw in the video that was posted by Ollie London. Now, I can try a little trick, which is generally a lot of these guys will post these crazy ones beforehand. Yes. Oh, man, that's perfect. Here we go. Right here. Now, I'm not going to read the caption because it's a little aggressive. But right here. So this is before that event happens. Right there. Now, you can't see it on screen, right? But you can only assume, given the fact that that guy's arm's right there and where his head would be, which is right here, you would imagine he was trying to knock that guy's hat off. So clearly, they're all taking part in this like kind of like little bickering and whatnot. Now, I mean, SNEAKO is going to have to get his teeth fixed. So I think he's got damages that would be well worthwhile to sue for. I think it's a poor situation. I don't think anyone's kind of a winner there. I think it's like you settled that like children, But again, I would imagine that's exactly how the security guard would be reacting, because he's probably, especially if he's ideologically opposed to everything being espoused, it only would make sense then that he is aligned oppositionally, which is he thinks that he deserves reparations. He probably thinks everyone in there is just an extreme racist who doesn't need to, who needs to do something or other. So I'm not surprised by the reaction by this, but I do think it's well worth your while to not go with everyone who's saying SNEAKO deserved it or SNEAKO brought it upon himself. I think there's a lot more details to the story that show that both people were in the wrong. I don't think anything requires SNEAKO to go and pop the dude's hat off. I think he was just doing it because obviously the security guard started doing it first. I think there's no real winners there, but I think if there was to be a winner there, I think SNEAKO does have a solid case to bring damages to get his teeth fixed against a security guard. And again, I think the security guard's probably going to get fired just due to the fact that he's bringing so much negative attention to them. And again, anyone you see going right off the rip who's wholeheartedly going against SNEAKO and saying like, oh, he deserved it and this and that is in bad faith. Do not trust them, especially someone who can be that ideologically opposed to someone who's that of that position as well. I think especially for someone who's as open as someone like that too. So to move on from this, that was the AFPAC Absurdity in a nutshell, really. I don't think there was much else that was to go with this. I mean, they eventually had, the event happened, I wish it would have happened as they planned it. I would have enjoyed being able to watch in full some more actual kind of stereotypical kind of stadium audience kind of venue and seeing what kind of rally they could have had they had all the production and equipment, because who's to say or who's to know what didn't happen and what speakers weren't there or what events they didn't end up having because they just had no space and were forced into a bad alternative or, an alternative regardless. But we're going to do a hard segue into a story that pissed me off. It's probably going to piss you off too. It's not for the faint of heart either. I'm not going to put anything graphic on screen here as well, but we're going to just start here. There was a woman, a mother of 5, who was raped and killed by an illegal immigrant, an illegal alien under the name of Victor Antonio Martinez Hernandez. 4 names, incredible to me. He's an illegal immigrant from El Salvador. He's been arrested and charged with the rape and murder of Rachel Morin. She was a Maryland mother of 5. He's accused of crossing into the U.S. illegally in February, shortly after he committed a murder in El Salvador. So a known murder suspect was allowed illegally into the country, and then he made his way into Maryland, where he did it again. Again, right? This is just failed immigration policy across the board. Failure. But let's go to Colin Rugg's post here. He says that the Harford County Sheriff, Jeffrey Gawler, shredded President Biden for being responsible for the death of this woman who died at the hands of an illegal immigrant. And the illegal is 23 years old. Again, all fitting the military age males. It's not families coming over here. It's not families looking to escape and all this. It's just military age men being shipped in. And honestly, like a big FU to El Salvador, because and they're doing it in their own best interest. They're like, hey, if Americans going to just take these people, we want them out of our country. So like, can you really be angry at El Salvador for pushing them out and make them responsible for someone just because they were born in that country? No, but again, it's like, dude, you're El Salvador. Why did you just let a murderer just walk out of your country? But then again, you look at us and it's like, why did we let a murderer just walk into our country? And I think that's the bigger frustration here. But I'd like to play this video. It's captioned as well, because I think it's pretty important. And I'm glad he took a stand. And especially for some place that is nearly 2,000 miles away from the border, having issues like this is just. And 2, you got to think of all the 5 kids that now do not have a mother, the husband who now doesn't have a wife, a partner, and it's just taken from you for what? For the convenience of not wanting to look racist. Or you take even the harsher look, which is like they're doing it on purpose because they hate white people. They want the great white replacement. They want to make sure this country is nothing of what it was, or has no ethno state or no ethno nation, no nothing, no heritage, no nothing, just a bunch of criminal aliens, dude. Let's go ahead and play this.
Rachel was not his first victim, and it's my understanding that this
forgive me.
Suspect, this monster, fled to the United States illegally after committing the brutal murder of a young woman in El Salvador a month early in January of 2023. Once in our country, and likely emboldened by his anonymity, he brutally attacked a 9-year-old girl and her mother during a home invasion in March of 2023 in Los Angeles. And as everyone I believe is aware, that was our first DNA match linking Rachel's case to the Los Angeles case.
So that report from Colin was wrong. He's saying that this murder happened in L.A. I mean, you could also make the point that if criminals were actually put in prison where they belong instead of being let out for, again, whatever reason, who even knows at this point, like how these people who can commit murder just at 23 years old do no time and then end up in a completely different state on the other side of the country and do it again. And it's just like, we don't have to live like this. But as long as people fear being called racist more than they fear their neighbor being raped and killed, I don't know what to tell you. I do not.
It has been a fear of mine that once we identified this suspect, the result would be exactly this. And I want to now direct these comments to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue and to every member in both chambers of Congress. We are 1,800 miles away here in Harford County. We are 1,800 miles away from the southern border, and the American citizens are not safe because of failed immigration policies. This is the second time in just 2 years that an innocent Harford County woman has lost her life to a criminal in our country illegally. Let me repeat that. 1,800 miles from the southern border, and this is the second woman in our county to be killed by an illegal alien. Suspects, in both cases, they are suspects from El Salvador with ties to criminal gangs. Should not be happening. Victor Hernandez did not come here to make a better life for himself or for his family. He came here to escape the crime he committed in El Salvador. He came here and murdered Rachel, and God willing, no one else. But that should have never been allowed to happen.
Good on the sheriff for aiming it right back at the presidency. It being like, no, you. Like, this ain't us, dog. Being like, no. You did this. You are the reason these people are happening. You have every resource and every law already on the book that could prevent these things from happening. You just refuse to do it. You refuse to continue building the wall. You refuse to do any kind of limiting. I mean, and dude, they're talking about bringing it down. Maybe we can only do 1.5 million people per year. Like, get the fuck out of here. And forgive my language, but man, if people do not pull their heads out of their rear ends, there's no end to this. You will be replaced. I mean, not being able to get a hold of somebody on customer service because they go, and what I think want? And you go, what? I just needed like, okay, we do what I want. I don't know what you're saying. I just needed to, okay, you don't want? It's like, if that's like the very, very low, that's like level 1. It's just going to keep getting worse, dude. It's just going to keep getting more and more insane. And it's not to say like, oh man, people who don't speak English, that's the worst thing that could happen to me. It's like, no, it just makes everything dysfunctional. It's broken. We're not homogenous. And how could you expect a country to rein in a Christian framework without being homogenous in some level? How could you even expect any framework outside of Christianity to work in a completely heterogeneous environment? You can't. The multiculturalism cannot support a singular system of governance. It can't. It can only give what we currently have, which is rules for thee, not for me. It can only exist in these tier systems where it's like, well, he was a celebrity, so he gets this kind of treatment. Well, he was a cop, so he gets this kind of treatment. Well, he was white, so he does this. Well, she's a girl, so she gets this. There's nothing. There's no. You can't have any kind of singular thread that connects everybody when you have enclave of enclave, culture here, culture this, and they're all entirely opposed. They don't recognize the same principles, let alone some of them are completely, oppositional moral framework as well. Nothing will change. And then people speak about how it's going to be dangerous to deport. It's going to be, are we ready for all these mass deportations and the chaos that'll bring? And it's like, I mean, dude, you either rip the Band-Aid off or you just let the wound fester until it kills you. That's really it. Mass deportations have to happen now. There's no amnesty that can be given right now. We can barely sustain the people that are in this country before we had, it's the low estimates are 13 million. I've seen estimates that are closer to 30 million. And I think most people would agree it's probably a lot closer to 30 million. I'm not buying this 13 million. I'm not going to buy the government, number when they're saying inflation's at 7%. It's like, bro, it's at 150. They're like 200 on some things. And now we're going to take the government's word that they've only let in this many illegals. Like, bro, dude, it's probably 30 or 40 million people. It's probably some stupid number that would make every American instantly overnight go and buy a gun and be like, we're done, dude. Possibly. But I'm still old enough to remember, don't turn moms into a voting block. And then Joe Biden became president and they were like, man, let's train the kids. Yeah, dude, don't ever sit here and tell me, wow, we got a lot of base moms in this country. Yeah, dude, they voted for Biden because they're scared of being called racist. And now mothers and children on the other areas of the planet, not the planet, but of America, get to be raped and killed out of that fear. Disgusting, dude. Absolutely disgusting. It's cowardice. But again, it goes back to this, like, the reigning number one tenet anyone can have in America who's like a normie or a default liberal is, well, can't we all get along? No, we can't all get along, dude. The history of mankind is defined by conquest and domination and crusades and a war. We live on a broken planet. We live amongst savagery. This utopia you are trying to build does not exist, dude. But again, a lot of these people operate without any kind of somewhat semi-deep understanding of the Christian faith. So they approach things from like, well, people are good at heart. And like, well, it's definitely possible. You just have to believe. And it's like, you can believe in that, but you refuse to believe in God-given evidence and truths. And I say that to just make it a point of like, this is why I'm so for Christian nationalism. But I also understand it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen because a bunch of edgy guys like me get online and just and start, start beating the war jump for it. It's going to take time. It's going to take a lot of time. That's why I bring up the point with the iPad kid earlier. It's going to take so much time to peel back what has been allowed to be normalized in society. And we're going to have a lot of probably bad generations. I mean, we're already coming up with this but the gender issue. Like, we're going to probably have a period of time where there's going to be more single women and single men in their late 30s and 40s than there ever has been in the history of America. And that's because of all the decisions we've made socially, all of the atomization that's happened when it comes to people, not being involved in communities or their own families. And then you get these super atomized, super selfish, all I care about is just me and what's in front of me and my career. It's my life. And then, okay, well, now you're 40. You have no kids. You have a couple cats, maybe a dog. And that's it. There's no going back. You can't. And, you can do the IVF and stuff, but that brings into questions of our morality, of like getting these dystopic cyberpunk kind of alterations done in the human body where, yeah, you can insert this egg, this fertilized egg up here and this attach it to this one ovary. And it's just like, man, dude. But maybe it's not possible. Maybe reigning in the culture isn't a real thing. And all we can really honestly do is slow it as much as we possibly can until the empire eventually unravels and the imperialistic, conquest and expansion comes to an end, and we all suffer massively for that. Now, just because a nation fails doesn't mean all the people become wiped out instantly. It just means things will be a lot different, and there'll be a lot less to take for granted, right? It'll be a lot less of you waking up in the morning and being like, well, I'm going to take this road here and take this. It'll be like, who's to say that traffic light works if the nation's not there and power goes out? A lot of variables, right? It's a very, very scary aspect. But I say all of this, right? All of this, the failed immigration policy, they won't persecute this guy, even though he committed murder in LA, murder in El Salvador. Now he's murdering here, but at least they charge him. They got him now. To this story, which is an American was shot in the head by federal agents for alleged paperwork violations. This is from Representative Clay Higgins, who I'm not too familiar with. But we'll just look at this headline right here. This little picture. Little Rock airport boss Brian Malinowski, I think that's how you say that. I could be wrong, forgive me, is shot in the head while federal agents serve a warrant at his Arkansas home. Now we'll go back up here to read Clay Higgins' little context added, which is, I will not support one dime of funding for the ATF until constitutional policy is fully restored. Please wake up, America. We the people are living in a police state. These federal agencies, DOJ, FBI, ATF, CIA, are way out of control. This American had a perfect record. He was squared away for his whole life. ATF had warrants for alleged regulatory paperwork violations. Easy stuff they could have handled 100% peacefully. Instead, they hit his home heavy and hard pre-dawn like he was MS-13. So the man wakes up and freaks out in those wild seconds and begins to defend his family from the violent home invasion, and he promptly gets shot in the head. Unbelievable. Abhorrent. I mean, I'm speechless at this. Speechless. So while we have literal illegals raping and killing in multiple states just running rampant, not being locked up, you have multiple cases. I mean, that viral incident of the woman in Chicago who was beaten in the parking lot by like 10 black youths, forced to have a miscarriage. Well, she was beaten. So she was beaten so badly, she has a miscarriage. She has hair ripped from her scalp. So they charge none of them. But you could have a paperwork violation and you will get domed in the head by a 3-letter agent because Daddy Biden said so. Yeah, F the ATF. What's up, Sock? F the ATF, dude. Fuck them. And forgive my French, bro, but I'm supposed to acknowledge these people as the government, the same ones who sit and ignore any moral responsibility or duty to come to someone's home and blow their head off because of paperwork violations, but at the same time refuse to prevent illegals walking in this country who have committed murder. Is like, I'm supposed to, you might as well come to the door with the clown mask on, dude. You think I'm going to go in that vein with you? You think I'm going to give a shit what badge you put in my face? Bro, get the fuck out of my door. Leave. If you want to come get me, dude, you better blow this door down and do me like you do every other American pre-dawn raid. Recognized government. What is this? I got to hear about all these insane stories of people not getting charged because they don't want to be called racist. Somebody called this. And it's like, it's the most egregious, like she was raped and then beheaded and this. And this guy had his paperwork wrong, allegedly. Domed in the head. Dude, get the fuck out of here, dude. Like, you are an absolute idiot if you behave and listen to what the government tells you, dude. Idiot, bro. Like, and then let's spin this to a different direction, right? What are they doing right now? Selective service? Oh, women are getting drafted now. Oh, men are automatically getting voted and drafted now. You think I'm gonna go fight your fucking war after you do this? Dude. You're gonna have to do me like the Ukrainians, dude. You're gonna have to come in with a van, dude, and swarm this home and pull me out. I'm not going willingly, dude. Protect what, dude? Protect my own, protect my family, dude. This ain't my country anymore, dude. Crazies run this thing. See from Saki, you said, I would defend my home if they came here with their BS. Same. A home intruder is a home intruder, government or not. And exactly, that's probably exactly what this guy is thinking. Doing a pre-dawn raid over paperwork? What's the guy supposed to think? You're telling me the logical conclusion is when he wakes up in the morning, he's like, they're serving a pre-dawn warrant because I messed up my signature. No, dude. He's doing that because there are people trying to kill me. There are people trying to invade my home. Government's biggest gang that walks this earth, dude. There is no bigger gang than the government. And I say this with my whole chest, dude. I do not acknowledge them whatsoever. What power, dude? You have no power here, dude. Yeah, you do with a gun. You can come and force me and kill me, bro. But what power is that, dude? You lost. That is no power, dude. The only power you got. I'm not saying this because I want to beg it or I'm encouraging this or want it to happen. I'm saying this as like, if this is not your mindset going forward, I don't know what to tell you. You are looking at the same government that is knowingly trafficking people and children for sexual gratification, writing numbers on their arms Don't believe me? Watch the Joe Rogan and Dr. Phil interview. Will blow your mind. And they'll blow someone's head off for having the wrong paperwork. And you see Salk also saying, I probably messed up a ton of firearms paperwork. So have I. I probably have too. And it probably could be retroactive things, right? It was probably good at the time, but because I didn't check up on it because they passed this one law in this one district in Ohio, it's like, oh, no, you're a felon now. Good luck. Like, it's such a joke, dude. It gets me so unraveled reading this stuff because it's like, bro, what was he supposed to do? And now I'm imagining he has kids. I imagine he has a wife. Imagine he has, even if he doesn't, he has a family. They're that, like, you're just gone. That's your government for you, just gone. And let's take it to another angle too. Who are the guys serving this fucking bullshit? You're telling me these guys read the warrant they were serving and they were like, well, looks all good, dude. This is worthy of a pre-dawn raid. Dude, I'm just like, and I bring River on and I try to talk to cops because I'm like, please don't let me go full ACAB. But I'm like, I'm running out of ideas. These same cops who sit there and go, well, yeah, we're trying to do the right thing. I talk to them and they're like, well, I don't know anything about politics. And it's like, bro, you are the militarized arm of the government. What do you mean you don't know what is going on? We say, it's a sock saying Dr. Phil's on a tear lately and I'm here for it. I know. Dr. Phil's been going crazy, dude. I think Dr. Phil saw the writing on the wall and he was like, bro, I'm not playing this game, dude. Because he had the Trump interview, I think. Yeah, because he interviewed Trump after he had the Rogan interview. But I think the Rogan thing, he was very like, what the hell is this, dude? Because he interviewed the former head of CPB. And the former head was like, yeah, dude, they're doing this. We know they're doing this. And he's like, but wait, what? And he's like, yeah, we talked about it. It was reported. And he's like, I think the same, similar to me, where it's like, how can you just say this out loud and there not be charges? If there's not charges, you're going to respect and acknowledge those people as your leaders, your government? Like, no, you're a bunch of criminals. You're literally a bunch of terrorists. And again, Sock's got a good point. Good on Dr. Phil. And this is the thing what's necessary, right? Is you got to get people who aren't normal politicos, who have a lot of influence, to make moves in the right direction. And in order to convince their audience, or maybe not just convince, but persuade their audience to be like, this is what you should be paying attention to. You should be concerned about these things. Because who else is going to do it? Because that's not the media. Mainstream media ain't going to do it. Mainstream media tells you the complete opposite. Tucker Carlson said a great thing the other day where they mirror the truth. It's never just a lie. It's always like the complete opposite of what happened. It's like it's constructed in a way to make it completely entirely the anti to what did occur. And it's just so aggressive. Now, I will say, I would like to move on because we're in the final 30 minutes here. I'm running out of time. Could do the creator spotlight, which is HOMATH. But before I go to HOMATH, there was one little bit with this, which didn't give me a little bit of hope, which was, I'm not sure who this is, but apparently Jim Jordan and Arkansas House members they have sent a letter to the Arkansas State Police requesting documents and other information related to this man's death. So hopefully with this knowledge, we will get maybe a bit more of investigation in. Maybe we can get some kind of trial run, something. What happened here? Was it really just alleged paperwork? And if it was, who and how and why was a pre-dawn raid authorized? That seems way outside the lines for something for paperwork. But I'm going to skip everything else I have because I realize I'm at an hour and a half in. We're going to do 2 hours. So we're going to go to the creator spotlight, the second title item here. So it's going to be another, again, hard segue to another instance here. But introducing HOMATH. Now, let me change this actually because I'm going to be off this for a second. Now, HOMATH blew up recently. I think it was probably in this last year or two, especially given the fact that the gender war, the gender dynamics, the culture war has all been essentially raging. It's been escalating like nonstop. And especially when it comes to the gender dynamics, I think most people are beginning to, smaller creators are making careers essentially off of literally just doing man on the street stuff where they talk to random girls, just get their opinions, or, the Fresh and Fit, the whatever podcast, Pearly Davis, there's so many of them now. But where everyone zigged with those Fresh and Fit style podcasts, he zagged with these like really creative, like scribble-like creations. So he does his videos a lot differently than most people do. And so he's got a unique style of videos, which I think helped him blow up because he's a bit unique, especially the way he kind of makes his stuff like a bit anonymous too, and the content itself. So I do have a video, and I would like to go to it. It's about what's wrong with marriage, and I think he does a fantastic job just breaking things down. And it's a bit unique too because it's not going to be the typical breakdown. He does it very pragmatically and without a kind of, I think, religious backing. And I'm not too familiar with where Homath's kind of, ideology is. I know he's definitely right wing because, and I can put this on screen here too, because he had one of these tweets where he says defending your home is a crime in brain dead left cult states. This is not even close to real life. This is a clown core take on home defense, and things have been like this for decades. In the USA, if you kill a burglar, you should get 10% of what it would have cost to keep the burglar in prison. So he's at least right-leaning. Now, I don't know what his true positions is. I've not seen enough of him to be able to even give you what my opinion, what I think he might be. But I'm going to assume he's definitely not a default liberal. He is a conservative, especially because a lot of his content is breaking down the current relationship market, dating market, and that current sphere of dichotomy. Yeah, you like this guy's stuff? Yeah, he's really good. I like a lot of his content as well. So I have one of his better videos that we're going to watch. And I've not seen it. But, I think I clicked on the wrong thing. And it just because, again, a lot of the reason why I started most of what I did for this came out of the red pill kind of motivation, which was like, dude, there's so much bad going on. There's so much bad solutions. There's so many single men. There's so many men that are killing themselves. The suicide epidemic is crazy. It's out the roof. That it was like, I want to lend my voice to this. This is one of the reasons why I was like, I want to start doing this. And then eventually that led to me becoming, well, I want to give the Christian solution to the red pill problem. And then they gave just a lot of it just going and going and going. Yeah, 10% is a good amount of money. Yeah, I know, especially with a lifetime of what it would have been. Maybe like a 10-year sentence. It's probably like make 10 grand off of that, dude. Here's 10 grand for defending yourself. Sorry for the trouble. But as far as I've seen, he's giving some of the best technical advice out there regarding just general advice and dating tips when it comes to Homath. But I think he does approach things from a bit more of a black pill perspective. So I kind of view he's coming from things pragmatically the same way Pearl does, but I think he goes a bit further, and I find his content to be a bit more riveting, if that's the correct word. So let's go ahead and do this. Let me switch this over here. Oh man.
I have a
switch. Oh, I'm sorry for the ad, guys. One day I'll have YouTube Premium when I'm making a bunch of videos to watch this trash.
I have a question.
Okay. So this is Homath. And again, you just take a big look at him. 460,000 subscribers. You can see that down here. Guy has clearly been doing well for himself. And I think he's only been doing this for like a year or two. I could be wrong on that, but at least that's what I've seen or noticed from him for about like last year or two. And he had one that went crazy viral on X a while ago, hit like 20 million views. And I think that probably essentially launched his career. But this one has 618,000 views, and it says, "What happened to marriage?" So this is going to be his breakdown. And again, coming from a very pragmatic stance. But it's a creator who I want to spotlight because I think, even if you're not giving the correct or the most Christian perspectives with things, I think there's still value in understanding what there is that you could do pragmatically with basic steps in order to improve your situation, in order to improve your ability to get on a date, your ability to just even talk to women. I think there is value in some of this like lower tier stuff that has less to do with marriage, but is more so about just basic social interactions between the genders. Let's go ahead and start this, man. And again, any issue with the sound, please let me know. I will change accordingly.
I have a question for the men. Do you guys still want to get married?
I think what you're asking is, do you want to be married? And I think that a lot of men would say, yes, I do want a partner to spend my life with. But when you say, do you want to get married? I'm not sure if you're keeping in mind all these extra steps that come before and the possible ones after. Here's a guy living in a cardboard box with his ex-wife in his house with other men. You have to keep in mind that happens with roughly 1/3 of new marriages, and that's only for the men who have the opportunity to get married, which is contingent upon a bunch of steps that...
I mean, just look at this. Like, it's all scribble work, but it's done so well. Like, I could, as much as I might scribble anything similar to this, the way it looks is like it's got an artistic kind of styling to it. I just love it. It just looks really, really good.
Have changed quite a bit over the years. So, in order to get married, you have to date, and in order to date, you have to work and make money, and in order to work and make money, you have to go to school. And men have been facing a lot of new difficulties in all of these areas over the last few decades. So, do I want to have a partner? Yes. But do I want to go through all of this again? Not right now. So you want to get married, you have to date, you want to date, you have to work, you want to work, you have to go to school. This is where a lot of male problems begin. I'm not saying that schoolgirls have it easy, but the last few decades, schoolboys have been treated like they are defective. In third
And that's true. I mean, most people don't even understand. Like, it's not even just like, because people want to limit it to like to recess and playtime and all that. I mean, it's even like the content of what boys are given in school as learning materials and working materials. You think about it when you're on the third grade, second grade, even, they go to like, okay, and now we're going to be reading House on the Prairie. And now we're going to be reading, insert, whatever kind of neutral, bland book that's got a lot of words in it. And it's basic learning material. None of that is schemed to pique the interests of boys or young men. If they wanted to, get that closer to the realm of young men and what they're more receptive to, it would be like engineering, aviation, flight. It'd be like how to make things. It'd be a lot more, there'd be more pictures, obviously, but that's what boys are more receptive to at this age. And so it's less even about the fact that it's like, well, boys can't be rough at recess and it's feminized. I mean, yeah, the feminization's a problem, but even on the intellect and what the male intellect is more receptive to, that's not in the light of physicality, but in the light of, just general passions and interests and hobbies. Nothing in the school system is really leveraging itself to work in men's favor. It's all in female favor. And a lot of this is also exemplified by the fact of like the simple rules of like sit still, you need to all be in these rows, you need to have, and all of that is antithetical to how boys would operate normally. They have to they essentially are exactly what he said, treated like they are defective girls. And that's why generally girls have an easier time in the younger stages of school.
grade, I used to finish my work before the other kids, and I would get up and move around, and they told me that was not okay, so they medicated me. When I got a little older, the other boys would start fights, and I went to the authorities to do the right thing, and they punished both of us. So then I took matters into my own hands, and they punished just me because of these policies. They don't.
And again, he's just going to keep railing at all of these things that are just he's probably going to say it better than I do. But again, it just, those two quick examples, everyone I think can just be like, I relate. I easily relate and suck, saying school was literally torture for me. School wasn't fun for me, man, either. I didn't really start even having halfway decent experiences in school until I was a junior in high school. And by that point, it was because I was I can drive my own car. I know I can just leave. I can do other things. I didn't feel as trapped into that environment as I was.
Don't let boys just fight it out anymore. Those types of policies are not setting young boys up for success. They punish the way that we natively look at the world. It definitely messed me up a little, and that was 30 years ago, and I have no idea what's going on now. When we get older and go to college, there are all kinds of things in place to help girls.
It has to be so much worse now, you would think. But at the same time, I also think maybe for boys, it's not so bad, because how many schools do you see where the teachers just aren't giving a single crap of what's going on? Where the boys are fighting each other again, but they're probably still all addicted to Ritalin because that's how Big Pharma works, right? Oh, you're having trouble learning? Well, instead of looking at anything possibly that could be wrong with your behavioral analysis, or maybe possibly what you're doing, here's drugs. America, dude. America.
That are not available for boys, and they say that it's there to correct problems, but I don't think those problems exist anymore. So as we are accumulating what we need to succeed in life, boys are getting less of a head start than they used to, which is, I think, one of the contributing reasons for why they say they have Peter Pan syndrome, and they never grow up. I think it starts here. When we get into the workplace,
And Peter Pan syndrome is honestly a real thing. I've seen it with guys who I've been close to as well, and it's sad and it's depressing. but I think that logic fits where if the entire, like if you remove someone's childhood from them, they will probably try to spend every ounce of their life afterwards, once they're given the reins, to seek out what they were never allowed to have, which then leads into the Peter Pan syndrome, which leads into men wanting to only play video games nonstop, which leads into men who never want to settle down, who don't want to have kids, who don't see the value in these things. It makes a lot of logical sense to think that it starts there, because it's a voiding of childhood and forcing you to be and act in all these ways that you don't want to be. So it's even a negative thing. It's not even just like do this instead. It's do these things that you hate doing. And so then you probably, whether you're conscious of it or not, you know, even if it's subconscious, working in an effort to get those things that you weren't allowed to have.
There are similar programs that benefit women and not men. And that's an issue because women want to make equal money to men, but then they also want men to make more and support them, and you can't have both. Additionally, the culture has become very inhospitable towards men, and again, the way that men communicate and behave. And I don't know if you've noticed, but the economy is getting pretty bad, and even though that affects everybody, men are the ones who are expected to pay. So this puts...
And that's even an insane thing too. It's because as bad as inflation's getting, it's one thing I've also not thought about too, but it is a 1.5 times multiplier difficulty for men. For women, it's like, there's no multiplier. And it's exactly for the reason that he's saying. It's like the more that inflation goes up, the more the burden's on men to be the primary provider, the sole, the maker of more money in the home. But then if you have, real wages aren't going up, and in all of these actual kind of reasonable professions that can't break those thresholds anymore because of inflation. Well, now then you get into situations now where it's like women don't want to date plumbers, they don't want to date electricians, they don't want to date that, because those are seen as like low tier, like low tier status jobs. And it's just, I mean, now they're paying a bit more because the market's catching up, but there's still some of those in that range of the blue collar workforce where it's a very respectable position and you should be glad that someone's doing it. But if inflation keeps going and those wages don't follow, well, then you end up in a situation where you're working a good job for a good reason, doing a good thing for community, but you're not incentivized at any point to do it, because if your incentive to create a family has to be to leave that position, it's a terrible, terrible incentive. And it forces people to do crazy things like being engineers or being viral TikTokers. And you're seeing that right now. And especially with the mass unparticipation happening across the board, whether it's workforce for men, whether it's dating for men, whether it's college for men, men at large are just not participating anymore. And it's because they just cannot find a point in continuing doing it, which is unfortunate, because then what it leads to happening is then that top percentage of men who did have it, who had less of a hard time, then begin to dominate in a bit more bigger piece of the pie, because all the less capable or the less competent or the less favorable men just vacate the premises. And then all that's left are the top dogs. And then you build in these positions again where men are like, well, it's all these guys. And it's like, no, it's the same guys. But I'll continue.
Puts us at an increasing disadvantage comparative to women as we age. Then when we get out into the dating world, if you don't have any money, that's going to be a problem. If you can't compete on the dating apps, which most men cannot, that's going to be a problem. If you're not okay with her having an OnlyFans or an Instagram or whatever, it's going to take some women off the table because they have so much attention. So a lot of men are playing catch up at this point in life when that didn't used to be the case. So our parents and grandparents did not have any of these problems. They just sort of grew up, got jobs, and married whoever was nearby. Have you ever thought of it like, would your mother have married your father if she had Tinder? Would she have chosen him? There's stuff going on in these phases of life for us that would have been unheard of even one generation ago. I once had a job where I worked with a girl. We had the same job. I had more experience. We had layoffs, and later she matched with me on Bumble and came to hook up. And I said, would you like to continue doing this? And she told me that I didn't have my life together enough. We were living in the same place, in the same job market, and we came from the same job, and I had more experience. And she was getting $120K a year to do some like women's leadership job.
It's never enough, dude. I mean, obviously it's anecdotal, but what is a lot of anecdotal evidence together? That is data. I mean, and it's just women operate this way, dude. It's just like this is how they operate. It doesn't matter the actual number. They don't have an understanding of it. I know it sucks to say this because it's like even growing up, I thought I had a much greater opinion of women than I do now. But again, you got to take it with a grain of salt. With it's like it's not women that are doing this. It's the fact that they've been conditioned to be like this, but also that the conditioning is playing on their biological vulnerabilities, which again, one of them being hypergamy, which is the fact that she must date up. She is, you know, Salk is saying social media has destroyed women's expectations. You're 100% correct. It's not even expectations. It's that they have this baseline of my man needs to be doing better than me. Otherwise, why am I with him? And some women are a bit more aware of that, like consciously, and some it's just sign of subconsciously. They can't really understand it. He just gave me the ick. They can't really put it in the best terms or words. And it doesn't matter. He's talking about how they had the same job. They made hundreds of thousands of dollars, and she still was like, "You don't have your life together enough." Can you imagine telling somebody who makes $70K a year and is settled and set, and they own their own business, and like, I can't get any better for me? And she's like, your life, you don't have it together enough. You're not making enough. Now, again, a lot of this too comes from the fact, again, that they are being conditioned against their biological vulnerabilities, which is the fact that they probably get pushed. Girl, if your man's not making 200K, he ain't shit. You leave him. And, you know, you times that by 100 and you make it, you know, you obviously make it less, you know, less corny than what I did, and make it more like, and if he's not making 200K, is he really a man? And you know, and you do different things like that. There's different ways to address it, but it's happening all over. It's pressure from everywhere, but it's all chiding the same points. Then they do view that as like, wow, he's not making enough money, combined with the fact that they feel innately that they must be with someone who is of greater status than them. That is the attractive factor for most women, is that he is the superior being. He is the smarter. He is the leader. He is the strong one. He is the provider. And so they go hand in hand, but with the conditioning that goes socially.
Job or something, and I was driving for Uber. So, you know, I think a lot of people are really underestimating how much easier this makes things. So then if you can actually get to this point, you as a man, you have to take everything that you've managed to put together over the course of your life and put it all on the table for someone who is probably not doing the same. Even though women are not having a hard time in the workplace, men are still generally expected to provide, while women generally keep more of their money for themselves. We've all heard, my money is my money, his money is my money. I found this great little video about that.
But I just have a quick question. My husband won't see all of my accounts, right? I have like 8 different bank accounts, but my husband only knows about 2 of them. I've just been secretly saving for years in case I ever need to. Oh, no, say no more. I don't need to see those statements, so as far as I'm concerned, they don't exist.
Yeah, so I don't love the idea that my wife might...
I just like, but why even get married? You know? But again, marriage is treated like luxury dating. Especially it's how celebrities treat it. Celebrities be getting married like 20 times. Dude, Taylor Swift has been married like, well, maybe she's not been married. But there's other celebrities that are like, they get married every like 2 years, every 1.5 years. It's just luxury dating to them, dude. All they can really do with it is like, this is my next status. I think honestly to them, it's like, it's social media clout. It's like, maybe we can merge our audiences together and make more of this. And then they gauge like, well, is our careers growing? And if they don't, they probably separate. I imagine most of them aren't even real. They're just done in an attempt to be performative to maybe like merge their audiences. Because again, the end thing is like, it's money, dude. These people just really care about money in the end goal, especially how it's exemplified here. She's going behind her back to keep further access for her money. She's already not participating in her own marriage. So why even be a part of it? I don't understand.
Be hiding money. Of course, I'm not allowed to do that. All of my money has to be on the table, and there's about a 1/3 chance that you're going to be taking it to party with other dudes in the house that I bought for you. Divorce laws have changed too. You used to need a really good reason to get divorced, but now it can happen just because someone is not happy. They even write songs about it. Check this out. I have to mute it for copyright. I'll read it to you. Might be the only guy who didn't send me hearted eyes in reply to my latest story. We work well on paper, we don't argue, we don't fight, but lighting scented candles just won't relight up our fire. And right there she goes, ah, it ain't that bad. It's just not what I wanted. Don't want to live this life half-hearted. Hang on, here it comes. I want fireworks and flames. Don't want safe, tame, practical. That ain't enough. That ain't love.
Oh, come on, these ads, bro. But like, yeah, dude, it'll never be enough. And Sock, you're saying you married up, so if she flips her ass and leaves, I get half of her stuff. Hey, good for you, brother. Good for you, man. You might need to start doing less chores. Start playing around. No, Joe, that's not good advice. Do not test your marriage, dude. And I hope for the best that you guys stay together and you work out well. But no fault divorce is a huge problem. You're 100% right. And I think that none of this will change unless you get rid of it. You have to get rid of it. I mean, that's the first step. I mean, you do that first, and then you can go after family courts. And I think there is a good enough sentiment that we can possibly see some states, and probably not all, but some states that are a bit more right and conservative leaning doing that in the future. And at least I hope that we can get to. You're saying there's no incentive to try. Are you saying if there's no incentive to try to push for no fault divorce, or no incentive to try to test your wife? I think there is incentive to push for no fault divorce for a lot of the reasons. One is like you get rid of no fault divorce. That means you're going to have just entirely less bloat on the family court system, period. But another big incentive is because we're seeing what the effects and the consequences of it in culture right now is. We are living in the result of having no fault divorce, which is everyone for themselves, except it's not everyone for themselves. It's all women for themselves at the cost of all these men. And we're just witnessing broken home after broken home after broken home. I mean, and again, I just point to someone's story like Jeff Younger, right? Like his whole life has been flipped on its head because of what's been allowed to happen to him by rulings of different judges, allowing different pieces of his life to be taken. And now he's not even allowed to testify in defense of his son because she's trying to castrate his son in California. I think there's plenty of incentives for it. Now there might not be. Now what you might be talking about is there's no incentives to try to test your wife. Don't do that. I don't think that's good advice. But I think for people who can recognize the problem, there is an incentive. And I think for people who can't recognize the problem, there is no incentive. And try and fix your marriage with no fault divorce. Yeah, and that's true. I mean, that is true, right? And I guess I approach it from two different angles, right? I think if no fault divorce is in place and then you get married is an entirely different story. Versus marriages, people who went into marriages knowing they had that and they're that ace in their sleeve that they could get divorced. That's why I'm saying, like, I don't think marriage even is what marriage is supposed to be right now, currently. Even among Christian people, there's a lot of Christian men that can't even get their wives to submit. So I think that you're right in the fact that people don't see the incentive. They can only see what would happen to me if I ended up in a bad situation. And and it's a reality. It is. It truly is. But I think those who, at least in the macro, can see the externalities of no fault divorce would be like, we at least need to move to a position to where we're getting rid of it, at least in some states. But again, my other angle with that too is like, I think if you're married and you got married with the covenant and under God, then I think then you have every incentive to try to fix your marriage, not because of no fault divorce, because you can't escape, but because you made these vows before God. You made a promise to your partner and to God. Now, I mean, a lot of marriages maybe don't even do the vows like that typically, and they're not done in the light of Christianity. It's like, how much can you respect those? But I think that there's another angle too, where it's like, I think it's imperative and good to work and to communicate with your partner to fix these things. And I think overall in the macro, the bigger point is you move away from no fault divorce. I think you start to see more positive externalities, and you would maybe get into positions where then people who wouldn't have been married 3 or 4 times didn't get married at all because they were unwilling to take that risk of not being able to leave that partnership. They finish this. There's ads in the way.
Copilot in the Microsoft ad.
This is the squircle of unconsciousness. It represents how.
But I do want to say, I think that's a good point to make, that there is a lot of people who are default liberals and normies wouldn't see a reason to fix marriage. wouldn't see reason to have no fault divorce, because if their mindset, all they're seeing is what he's presenting, which is all these issues with men. You're putting a man in a position to be like, I'm going to get rid of what possibly maybe my only out of an insane, an insane situation. But again, I think the bigger point is you move to this to get the positive externalities because you're trying to change culture.
People don't know how relationships work, and so they think the relationship is going to go like this and then it turns a corner. I think she's at the dissatisfied part. You can't have everything is exciting all the time. Good choices are boring. No relationships are going to be fun the whole time. They're all going to have spots where there's no fire. But she don't want safe, tame, practical. That ain't enough. That's not even love. Look how passionate she is about dumping her husband. That's real, I can spot a faker. And she even sings about other men giving her googly eyes on her Instagram stories. So this girl is what I would call an excitement chaser. She starts out her new relationships excited, and over time gets bored when they're not chaotic, and then by the time...
And doesn't that speak to what I just said, which is like, it's luxury dating, dude. You didn't plan to even get married to this guy. Your fault against him, and say it's not a skit and say it's real. It's because other guys were giving you hard eyes on your Instagram page when your husband wasn't. It's like, man, the bar has fallen. There is no bar, dude. There just is no bar, dude. It's just so sad and pathetic. And it's like, but this is what you get when people are Taylor Swift fans.
Time we notice she's bored, she's already got a new guy lined up, and this has pretty nasty effects on us. So your relationship satisfaction is going to change over time, but your stability is not supposed to. That's what marriage is. That's what it's for. Even when you start feeling like things are not as fun, you have to remember that commitments are what gets you through the swings. I actually have a little theory that this takes about a year. Obviously, we get up and go to sleep with the sun, and women have changes in their hormones and emotions with the moon, and I think that a year is the amount of time that it takes to find somebody and have that strong emotional connection, get pregnant, and have a child. It's about 1 year altogether. And this girl is making a spiritual experience out of a biological process, and she's allowed to end the marriage over it. So it's not that I don't want a partner.
It's just like, dude, again, shout out to Homouth, dude. The pragmatic nature of just being so technically when you're breaking it down. It's so good, dude. It's so good. And like, how do girls even get mad at stuff like this, right? Like, he's making it really hard. He's not using any kind of like flamey rhetoric. Man, dude, chef's kiss, man.
It's just that a lot of us don't have what we need to build a partnership. And even if we get it, it could fall apart immediately. She could squircle herself into believing it's not love and have a phone in her pocket with 1,400 horny guys on it, and then I end up here. So what you've done by fighting for equality is you've basically said, hey, you want to play a game of chess? I get all queens though. Hey, where are you going?
Do you guys still want to get married? Like, is that still a thing?
I hope this all made it clear why it's less of a thing.
So good, dude. That's so good. And I mean, and I want to point this out too, to be like, send this video out. Find that video from Homath, and I'll put the link in the description actually. Give a like to this guy too. Go ahead and put this in chat right now. Like, it's deserved, dude. Like, this guy's balling out. I think, like, dude, just send it to people who aren't understanding. I mean, I think if anything, his videos are the best ones to kind of help describe the broken nature of what's happening between the genders. Especially he does it so pragmatically. He doesn't come from like a Christian standpoint. He just explains it like, this is what's happening. This is what's real. This is why people are not doing this. Like, he's not using the crazy rhetoric or anything like that. And there was a couple other things I wanted to get into too, but I'm going to probably save those for the next episode if I even get to them. Those are the big ones I wanted to cover. But again, creator spotlight, that is ho_math. Homath, he's the same thing, I think, on X as well. But subscribe to him, follow him. He makes phenomenal videos. All of them are like that. I can't imagine how much time he spends, scribbling, but he's got the style down. He's got the process down. And so good on that, brother, for keep making content, especially because I view this to be content that is good, practical, just explainers of the current iteration we're in, without any of the emotional screaming baggage that comes from the Fresh and Fit podcast, or when these people are like actually like at each other's throats, like what you see on the Whatever podcast and different things of that nature too. So with that, just one final announcement. Again, if you didn't catch at the beginning of the stream, if you see it right there, I'm also going to be on Kick, but it's going to be all secondary content. It's going to be hopefully attached to a content house with, I say that content house, it's kind of cringe. But a couple of my friends, both of which are groomsmen, we have a few ideas coming. We have an idea to possibly maybe do a live Dungeons and Dragons get together. We can invite people to come up with us to partake in a Dungeons and Dragons, kind of like virtual playthrough with a journey. We'll obviously need graphics and things like that as well. Another idea is just doing maybe a more of a pop culture kind of stream where we look at entertainment and we kind of critique and poke holes and things, such as like I would come from it from like the Star Wars Acolyte stuff, the Rings of Power, all of like my favorite things that they've perverted and twisted and queerified and made gay that I would wish they did not do. And just a lot of ideas going there too. So I'll be streaming to Kick, and then obviously gaming as well. I'll probably do like casual, just chatting streams too, trying to just push out as much as I can, because it's hard to get a co-host. It's hard to get someone who wants to do the political kind of talk, because you got to take a risk, right? I think everyone kind of understands that when you're voicing these opinions that are not any percent correct opinions, or as deemed by the administration, the deep state, the bureaucracy, and so it's just been a little bit of a struggle to get consistent content and people going and do things together. So with that, I say thank you for everyone who joined me. I hope everyone has a blessed rest of the day. Yeah, all of the dead franchises, you're 100% right. I had to change the latency back to normal, because when I did the lower latency to have more real-time interaction, my stream crashed. So I'm just going to avoid that for now, because I think that's what the issue was. It might have been my encoder. It's hard to tell. I just don't want the stream to crash 2 streams in a row. So I'm going to keep it like this, and I'll try again in the future possibly. But again, thank you for everybody who joined me. Christ is King. Hopefully this was more offensive than it was accurate. But again, I'm probably being a little bit more accurate here lately. I appreciate you all. Subscribe, share the show. Have a good rest of your day. Christ is King, and I will see you all next time. Take care.